we wanted to appeal to a broad audience. There's a little less plaid and axes than you might see in other craft breweries and things like that.
That was consciously done.
Consciously done. We want to be, classy and welcoming enough for all sorts of groups, so that
we're only
they sit
50%
down.
bearded.
Only 50% bearded.
Well,
that's true.
I mean, 2/3 right now.
Oh yeah,
Just at the moment.
here, yes. But.
Well, I can see the behind the camera, so we're down to 25% now.
All right, fine. But.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to All Beer Inside. We are back at the breweries. Today we're in the Hudson area of Quebec at Cardinal Microbrewing. Joining me today is Will and Duncan.
Hi.
Hello.
Hey, thanks for inviting us out to do the interview today. Really appreciate it. You brought us out some great beers to try. What's number one I'm going to be trying here?
Number one we're trying is a new beer that we're going to be launching in cans in the next month or so. It's called Golden Square Mile, and it is based very much so on a recipe I found the process sheet for in an archive, and it was made by a Montreal brewery in the 1930s. I had to kind of suss out all the measurements and everything because it was all in barrels, and they didn't say what kind of barrels, and it was malt, and I had to figure out what kind of malt. But I did some research and got something I think is fairly close to what it was supposed to be. So we called it the Golden Square Mile after the Golden Square Mile because it's also a golden ale.
Very cool. Awesome. As we do on the show, a toast.
Toast. Cheers.
Ooh, light, crushable.
Yep, it's 4.5.
Ooh.
And here we are. It's the middle of the summer, so it's perfect timing for this beer.
Yep.
Yeah, I could drink a bunch of these on a patio. Yeah, like I said, crushable. It's already gone. Awesome. So, guys, what brought you together? What's the beer story of Cardinal?
Well, I came to Montreal about 20 years ago to do a PhD in history. PhD kind of fell apart after many years of switching subjects and couldn't get access to files. So I'd been making beer in my spare time I had, and I had been making beer based on historical records, archival sources, trying to recreate historical beers. And I thought, well, people are always drinking. If the economy tanks or everything's going great, they're always drinking. So that's not a bad thing to do. So I went off to Niagara College in Ontario and did the program there for about a year and a half, 2 years. And then I worked in a brewery just over the border in Ontario for 2 and a bit years. And then Will said, hey, you want to start a brewery here in Hudson? And I was like, that's a much better commute than Cornwall. So yeah.
Was Cornwall Urban that you were at?
No, it wasn't Urban. It's just past Cornwall. It's in Ingleside. It's called Humble Beginnings.
Okay, yeah. We've trying to get them on the show.
Oh, all right.
Yeah, literally Humble Beginnings. They're just in a strip mall. So.
They are.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's awesome. And what brought you two together originally with the whole, because pre-show, you're from the West Coast, you're from the East Coast. How'd you guys meet up and decide?
I moved to Hudson because first I lived in Montreal, then St. Anne de Bellevue because my wife teaches at John Abbott, and then we bought a house out here because it's close-ish. And you?
Yeah, so we met kind of because of the Cub Scouts, the Boy Scouts, right? I was a Boy Scout leader, and Duncan's son was in the Boy Scouts, and I met first Anna, and then at different scouting activities, we got to know each other. Duncan was finishing up his schooling at the time from brewing school, and so we had that mutual interest of brewing and beer, and when it came time to start the project for Cardinal right here in Hudson, we got together and started working on it. For me, I'm also not from around here. I'm from out west. I lived my entire life pretty much in British Columbia, just outside of Vancouver in New Westminster, BC. And I was a home brewer and in home brewing clubs, and it was a couple of guys from the home brewing club, while I was in it, went out to start a microbrewery, which is Steel and Oak, if you want to look it up, Steel and Oak Brewing in New Westminster. And they had a great time doing it, lots of challenges, lots of victories as well. And I really liked the way their business became the hub. It updated the whole community, and it became the hub of the whole community, and they were getting to practice their hobby as a passion. And I kind of took that experience and some of the other brewery projects out west. I kind of took that experience as to heart and something I would want to do. So I'm working for a corporate employer, and there was a certain point where I looked around and said, well, I'm not getting any younger. If I'm going to do something, let's do it. Let's get started. And at the same time, I was getting to know Duncan, and we were getting to meet each other, and the Boy Scouts were going on there, and the Cub Scouts, I should say. And we got started.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. As somebody who's part of the scouting movement for a long time, I was Beaver Cub Scout, so I know where that's coming from, and how you meet new people from that. So that's pretty awesome to hear, like that you guys met through the scouting movement. Have you ever thought of maybe doing like a charity event for the scouting with the brewery?
I was thinking about the Cub Scouts here in this section that's here not long ago, and about maybe getting more involved again. When things calm down, and we've all gotten through the pandemic response and after response, and when we've gotten through the, getting the new business up and running kind of phase. I think that there's some interest with the group just to see what's going on here, and I think that would be a pretty interesting way to participate and get involved again.
Now you guys also opened during the pandemic, which is pretty wild. What made you guys decide, like, you know what, we gotta sell beer. We gotta start this up. Let's go. So,
well, Carp, that was all part of our master plan. You see, we
started.
You actually
before
went
the
to
pandemic.
Wuhan and brought it to
That's
Canada.
right. Yes,
Okay.
yes, exactly. It's all because of us. No. I mean, when we started the business plan, and when we were working on like the real estate aspect, and we were working on the financing aspect, and all of those earlier stage actions, there was no concept that there was going to be a global pandemic.
In fact, the day before the Quebec shutdown on the 13th of March,
Right.
we had a meeting, and I was like, I don't know, guys. You've been watching the news? It was like, no, it's ridiculous.
That
Nothing
was
will
me. I
ever
was like,
happen.
no, it'll be fine. We've had these things
24
before.
hours later, boom, shut down.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's wild. Like even my job, they're like, start bringing home your laptop. You might have to work from home, and then next day they're like, yeah, don't bother coming in, just work from home permanently. So
Exactly.
Yeah, so
And,
we were, this was all in the plans long before the pandemic started, and we were so far into it,
Yeah.
couldn't pull out anymore. So
Yeah.
that's why we're here.
Like this place was being torn apart.
Yeah.
Our tanks were being manufactured, or maybe being shipped to us at that point, somewhere in that cycle. We had, recipes, we had calendars, we had schedules, and it all just stopped, right? Middle of a renovation project, there was a good chunk, a period of time where nobody lifted up a hammer, right? Nothing was happening. And all of the timetables started to slide. The brewing equipment, the renovations, when we could open, when we could brew, all of those things started to slide. Even simple things like getting certification documents from various government agencies started to become impossible, right? Although government agencies were working from home now, and they were just working out how that works. Like, how does working from home work when you need to stamp official documents? And so the timelines were the first real effect. And then it was the opening, we're finally brewing beer. Duncan's brewing beer in the back. We don't have the full system set up yet because we're waiting for tanks, we're waiting for boiler equipment, and Duncan's brewing in the back on the pilot system. But we can't open the terrace, we can't open the tap room. It's just cans. We're selling cans out of the front door. It was a big pivot to limp mode, and then a fast ramp back up to open.
Sure was. Yeah. And even our pivot was hard to do because we would see people just across the border, and they would have like beer delivery, or you can buy online. It's like, and we can't even do that.
Yeah.
So it was just people coming by foot.
yeah, as a Canadian, it's very frustrating seeing the rest of Canada getting beer delivered at home, and it's like, well, why can't we do it in Quebec? Oh, because of rules. I'm like, why can't we have unified beer rules across Canada?
Yeah.
No.
It'd be easier that way. So.
That's right. It's much easier for me to order a 6-pack online from British Columbia and have it delivered here in Quebec than it is for me to, ship a 6-pack to the next town over in Quebec.
Yeah, it's wild. It's unfortunate. Hopefully things change soon. In case, let's be prepared. Let's keep local businesses going. That's what we're all about. That's why our show is all about support local. Let's go. Let's keep these guys going. And you guys obviously knew like cans. That's what we have to sell. So
Yep.
I've seen you in a couple stores. Saw you in Verdun recently too. So it's good to see you guys are starting to come out there and across Quebec.
Yeah, our distribution program is new and it's been expanding. We have a new distribution partner, a new depanneur typically, or a grocery store perhaps, every week. And we've recently had a new program launch with Titfret, which is a chain of épiceries, gourmand food depanneur all across Quebec. I'm thinking that there may be 15 of them at this point. And so our beer will be available in all of those. So we're really, really gratified to see the spread of the beer and the brand and the understanding of who Cardinal is. Of course, we all wish for things to move faster, but people are also just opening back up. The market is changing, and we're expecting to get bigger in that sooner.
So speaking of the Cardinal brand, where does the name Microbrasserie Cardinal come from?
Oh, well, long discussions and
Yeah.
arguments over ideas. Well, there's different meanings attached to Cardinal, and that's why it played so well. It's bilingual, which is awesome because we wanted a name that was simple and bilingual. It also, there's the bird, and there are lots of cardinals around here, but it's not just the bird. The logo actually is a directional pointer for a map, because the cardinal also stands for the Cardinal Direction, north, south, east, and west. And we have a kind of general travel-ish theme for our brewery, and the idea is when I make one of the beers, I look at where does this beer come from, what are the traditional ingredients that are used in this beer, what are the traditional processes that are used to make this beer, and as well as I can, I try and recreate all that so that the beer that you have is a good representation of that sort of beer, the style, and what that kind of a beer should taste like. And so when you're having one of the beers, you're having a beer not just that's made here where I threw a bunch of ingredients together and it tastes good, but it's a beer that it's from a certain place in the world. And even on our cans, around the top, we have a little compass, and we have a little pointer that's the same shape as this on the compass, and the pointer is pointing to where that beer would be from if you stood in the middle of the compass in Hudson. So where on the compass you would be pointing. So it's Britain or Germany or Australia or something like that.
British Columbia or Japan in the future. So it's like it's the cardinal directions, and Cardinal's kind of pointing the way to the different styles and bringing in the brewing cultures and the beer drinking experiences from all around the world right here to our customers.
That's awesome. And Hudson is a very lovely area to be in. No issue with the city there, because I know there used to be a brewery here, Bois Blanc.
Yeah.
They moved to Côte du Lac. Former interview with Martin and Fred. But you guys come in, they're obviously like, yeah, we want a brewery here again.
Oh yeah. It was at one of the scouting events. The mayor was there, and he's like, wait, you want to start a brewery? That's fantastic. Okay, what can we do? We'll do this and we'll do that. And we're like, all right, that's not a problem.
Yeah, with the city administration, the town administration here in Hudson, with local businesses, different community groups, and just the general public, it's been an immediate and warm reception. And we can count, so many of the folks that are working with the city or for the city or, elected folks as great customers and great supporters. The town of Hudson really was not difficult at all about any of the aspects. We had some work to do related to, our connections to sewage and to water, and they were very straightforward and helped us understand exactly what needed to get done. The work got done, and that's great.
That's cool. And you're not far from like farmland and stuff, so I guess a farmer comes up and picks up your spent grain and stuff like that.
Yes, that's what happens. Every time I brew, I send him a text, and he shows up the next morning and he takes it away, and he has a hog. He has a farm in Pointe Fortune it's a hog farm, and they just love the stuff.
Yeah, I love how kind of in the brewing industry it all can circle together. A lot of places starting to try and become carbon negative on top of that, putting solar panels, windmills, recycling, even reusing the steam that comes out of your boils. Just so the brewing industry is trying to save the planet at the same time because they need people to stick around and drink their beers.
Well, that was that was another one of our delays. So our big equipment did arrive last summer. It was a little delayed because it was being manufactured in China and their factory shut down for a few weeks. But that wasn't a huge delay. The large delay was our boiler had to get certified by the Canadian and Quebec governments because it's a pressurized vessel. And it wasn't to be certified because I guess that model was rarely used or only been used a few times.
Well,
like that.
it was being imported, so it wasn't already in stock here in Canada.
Yeah.
So it's being imported, and every time it needs a document to follow the import.
But that took months because they just were not issuing those stickers. And it sat in a warehouse in Virginia from May until November. And then it had to be installed, and so we weren't brewing on it until the beginning of February.
And so the reason that was a key decision for us is because we chose to use a carbon neutral generator, right? The steam generator, the boiler for our plant. Many times you'll see oil or diesel fired steam boilers. You'll see natural gas, propane, and those were all options, and they would have been cheaper. But if we had the goal of being as sustainable as we could be as a brewery and as a business, we can't start with fossil fuel burning steam boiler, right? So we made the choice to get a 150 kilowatt, 600 volt electric steam boiler, and it's mounted right next to the brew house, and it's been great. But we're pulling on hydro, so you get a carbon neutral. Here in Quebec, the electricity rates are some of the best in the world. The fossil fuel rates are not some of the best in the world. So here, there's no excuse, in my opinion, there's no excuse here in Quebec for a brewery of our size to not think about an electric-fired brewing system, either on direct for smaller and then for steam for bigger ones. And it's really worked out for us. There's a couple of really operational benefits to it as well, the speed.
I just start that thing up, 5 minutes later I have steam.
Wow.
It's really fast.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I love hearing this stuff too. Like, let's keep the environment going for your kids, their kids. We need to keep this going.
Yeah, that's right.
Let's go with beer number 2 today.
Okay. So beer number 2 is the Red Kölsch. So it's a Kölsch, but it's red. And we wanted to have a beer. Initially, we were thinking about having a red Pilsner, and I tried to make a Pilsner. I was adding crystal malts, and it just became less and less and less like a Pilsner. And I had heard of another brewery in Ontario that was making, and I knew a guy at Niagara College who also made a beer using beets to give it color. So I just played around and added some beet juice, and there was this sweet spot where you added just enough and it went red, but it didn't taste like beets. It actually had like a fruity flavor to it. And so that's what we went with. It's a Kölsch with red beets.
Toast.
And it's called the Red Spark.
Yeah. That's like refreshing, a little bit of maltiness.
Yeah, absolutely. So Red Spark it's an interesting name. I mean, just from the sound of the name, it's a nice, crisp, a memorable name, but it's got a real connection, a historical connection to Kölsch, to the city of Cologne in Germany. Now, one of the aspects of our beers and the recipes that Duncan puts together is a historical connection to a brewing culture, and this is no different. Cologne is a great town to stand up and be delivered beers to. I mean, it is a great city for beer drinking culture, and its neighboring city, Dusseldorf. So with Red Spark, way back several hundred years ago, we're talking about the late 1600s and 1700s, there were the influential people of the town, the burghers, formed together to make like a city watch, right? They would make like a city guard, and they would put money out to pay for soldiers in uniforms. And they weren't exactly police, but they were the city guard in case there were, marauders and other nasty stuff going on, and they would keep the town safe. And they would wear these red jackets, and they got the name Rotfunken, which is the Red Sparks. And the Rotfunken, as time went on, cities all over Europe came to rely less and less on their, bourgeois-funded city guards, and more on, the institutions of government, right, and police, and so the Rotfunken became a festival society, almost like an honorable private club that threw these great festivals in the summertime in the city of Cologne, and that became, the Red Sparks became famous for, throwing parties for drinking Kölsch and music and food and summer festivals throughout Cologne. And so in honor of that, and Kölsch as a beer style, we have the Rotfunken, the Red Spark from Cardinal Brewing.
That's awesome. So that's leading pretty much into my next question is, where does the creativity of the naming of the beers come from? Naked Kölsch, Flagship ESB, Piper Stout, Test of the West ISA. Where do you guys come up with that stuff?
Well, I'll start with the tests. So Test of the West ISA, it's written on the wall over there. When we use the word test in a name, it's because Duncan is working on a recipe and test brewing a recipe with the goal for that to be a released beer. It's going to grow up and be a real beer someday. It's going to get its label, it's going to get its name, it'll be released. Until that happens, we call it Test of the West, for example, or Test Gold was a recent one, and then they get launched.
Very cool. I see you also make a ginger beer and a lemonade. I see that craft soda is becoming very popular across the board. We got to jump on that train. If somebody's here with their kid, they need a ginger ale, they need a lemonade.
Duncan should talk about
options,
that. Yeah, so. Duncan should talk about that ginger beer. It's fantastic.
Yeah, I mean, it's a ginger beer recipe I came up with. It's not really a historic one or anything. It's very basic. There's really only 3 ingredients in it: ginger, water, and sugar. That's it. But yeah, I mean, as someone with 2 kids who likes to go to craft breweries, there has to be something for the kids because they're allowed to be there, but they certainly don't want to be there if it's a place where mommy and daddy are going to have something to drink, but we're just going to sit here and watch them. So
yeah,
you got to have something for the kids, but you also have to have something for someone who drives out to Hudson, because we're not in downtown Montreal, we're not on the metro. So there's going to be a designated driver who might have a pint of something, but if their friends are having 3, they want to be able to sit there too and have something.
And the lemonade is there. It's a collaboration between us and Pop Culture, which is an artisanal popsicle manufacturing and hospitality company just about a block away from here. Julie has run that for several years, and people are used to seeing her at fairs and markets, but she's got a really great shop just down the road, and she makes that lemonade for us. And that lets us do a number of things. With the ginger beer, we can make rattlers, we can make shandies, we can give little drinks to the kids that come in, and there's more options for people who don't drink or are driving, as Duncan said. We really want to be a very welcoming place for everybody, and that does mean families and with kids. So we get the kids up here to pull their own lemonade out of the tap, and we have a big pack of coloring books and felt markers and stuff like that to keep them entertained for a little while, and that's been working out really well. We're very happy to be a welcoming place for families, mostly in the day, as well as all sorts of people who want to come in and hang out with us here on Main Road.
Yeah, well, your terrace is absolutely beautiful, and like you said,
Thanks.
right on Main Road right now, which is good too. I'm assuming there's a lot of bicyclists around here too, so I'm sure they pop by and get a refreshment before they head back. So
yeah, we're lucky to be on a great bicycle route or a couple of great bicycle routes. I've always thought, and I'm sure a lot of people have seen the connection, craft breweries and the cycling culture, they go hand in hand. Like you've got that word, the Radler, which is in German, it's cyclist. It's a beer style specifically to address the beer drinking needs of the cycling community. And here we've got that too. People get off the ferry from Oka with their bikes, and they book it over to Rigaud for the bicycle trails there. We're one of the options to go from Montreal to Ottawa. There are bicycle races and festivals in town. And we were seeing, bicycle after bicycle being lent up against our terrace fences. And recently I found an old bike rack.
Nice.
And painted it bright red and put it out there. And it's been full several times. And it's really nice to see people coming from far and wide. And we're on their destination list. Some cases people are finding us because we're here and we're visible on Main Road. some cases people are coming to look for us, and that's great.
Yeah, no, it's the internet does wonderful things for craft beer drinkers sometimes. Just generally speaking with guys like yourselves and other ladies and influencers and others in the industry, is everybody in craft beer culture is awesome so far.
It is a little too easy sometimes with craft beer and being in homebrew clubs with your buddies and stuff like that, to think that everybody who's going to want to enjoy craft beer is just like you, just like me, just like Duncan. We made a conscious effort when we were building out the concept for this brewery and for the hospitality space that we wanted to appeal to a broad audience. There's a little less plaid and axes than you might see in other craft breweries and things like that.
That was consciously done.
Consciously done. We want to be, classy and welcoming enough for all sorts of groups, so that
we're only
they sit down.
50% bearded.
Only 50% bearded.
Well,
that's true.
2/3 right now.
Oh yeah,
just at the moment.
here, yes. But.
Well, I can see the behind the camera, so we're down to 25% now.
All right, fine. But.
Now it is a lot of beer bros look like me, but it's just my attitude is more like I want everybody to enjoy beer. So there's guys who look like me who are like, no, your Instagram women are selling their body. I'm like, no, I met these girls. They can put beer down faster than I can.
Yeah.
So there's no need to have that kind of negative attitude when coming into this industry. So
what we see is a very egalitarian customer base.
Yeah.
Okay, we see people. I don't think that there's really we can't say we have more women customers than men customers, or more men customers than women customers. It's just so even. We've got real enthusiasts who are boomers and older than boomers. We've got younger palates too that are coming in here. It really is spread out.
We're inclusive.
We're very inclusive. The only thing I could say is that I find that it's a little less likely for a fella to buy a merch item. Just a little. That's my understanding. It's a little less likely for a fella to buy a merch item, but
because we end up spending all the money on beer instead.
But it could go that way. Maybe it can go that way. Yeah.
When it comes to the labeling and the cans, are very unique. Like your Flagship, you have a big ship on it. Your Piper Stout, it looks like you're almost like in a valley. Who came up with the ideas for the labels? Are you working with a graphic artist? How's that going?
We worked with a local graphic artist. We also worked with little sister in Australia is doing our new labels right now. They're all in this. I have tried to find a real proper term for it. It's just called poster design, or railway poster design, or travel poster design. Mm-hmm. It's kind of late Art Deco, mid-interwar graphic design style. It's very clean, it's very minimalist, and that's sort of the look we were going for. It also goes along with the general travel theme we have, because it reminds people of those old-time travel posters, which is the idea. But what is on the label? It's really just a discussion between us, like what does this beer feel like? What kind of a landscape would go along with this beer and make people think of it? What kind of colors with this beer? So, like for example, we've got our Camp Norway, which it's the last beer on our plate here.
Mm-hmm. That's right.
So the Camp Norway, it's made with Quebec, which is from Norway. It's a Northeast IPA, so it's the label on it is based on a town called Lunenburg in Nova Scotia, and it's actually based off a photograph from Lunenburg, and also like that. But we changed the color of the houses to kind of go with the tropical flavors of the beer, and in that town there is actually a place called Camp Norway, which is where the Norwegian Navy, which was kind of stranded after the Nazis invaded Norway, but taken in by the Canadian Navy. It's where they were based during the Second World War.
Yeah.
So that's why it's called Camp Norway.
And it's still there if you go there. Camp Norway is still there.
And like Piper Stout is, it looks like because we weren't sure, is it going to be an Irish Stout, Scottish Stout? Where is it from? I don't know. So it's a Celtic Stout. And Red Spark, that's actually, the picture on it is if you go down the road next to us here called Wharf Road, there's an old wharf at the end from the 19th century, and it's actually the view if you're standing on that wharf across the river.
Very
so,
cool.
I mean, they're all based in actual places, or based in actual locations, and usually ones that have some connection or meaning to the name or the style of beer.
Very cool. Just make sure you don't include addresses. You don't want to dox anybody, just in case.
Yeah, that's right. You know, they're all very evocative of a place, and that's really part of the coding, part of what we want people to take away from our brand and our beer drinking experiences. With the Flagship, that's like a direct signal towards kind of the art style design, like the Cunard line travel posters that you might have seen around. And it's a classic British pub ale, right? So you've got this long history of, steamship liners leaving ports in England and in Europe and coming over to the New World. And these great big travel posters in this glamorous lifestyle. And you've got that phrase, this is the Flagship. And that ESB and the Red Spark were, I believe, the first two recipes. So it was our Flagship.
Very cool. What's beer number 3 we're going to be trying?
Beer number 3
Speaking
is
of which,
the ESB.
You got it. Flagship ESB.
Flagship ESB.
Big fan of ESBs personally. I find not a lot of places do make them, so tell us about the ESB.
Well, it's an extra special bitter, and it's just a good example of a good British pub ale. I tweaked it around a lot just to get that kind of jammy but bitter but biscuity flavor that reminds you of like a nice English pub in the countryside.
Nice. Toast.
Toast.
Oh yeah, all sorts of ESB goodness.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, a little bit of caramel, a little bit of malts, very, very well balanced. This is a beautiful beer.
This is a favorite for a number of folks here in Hudson, especially the local crew. There are a number of expats from Great Britain generally the United Kingdom, who are here. And this is a very familiar style for them. And they really appreciate having it available, something like this.
Yeah. Very, very tasty. So far, my preferred one. Obviously, here's another example. Somebody comes in who's a classic BMC drinker, Bud most course. They walk in. What do you push them towards? Like, here's beer with flavor, try this.
I would push them towards the Golden Ale or the Naked Kölsch. Those would be ones that, especially the Golden Ale, as we were told yesterday, someone tasted it and they're like, it's kind of like a Labatt 50, but a lot better. And I was like, yeah, that's exactly what I was going for.
Bullseye, Duncan.
That's awesome. Have you gotten I've gotten my father into craft beer. He's 76 now. Maybe 2-3 years ago he started drinking. Do you have any kind of regulars who, because we're open again, fully in Quebec more or less, somebody who you've seen their palate changing because of your beers?
Oh, for sure. I have a neighbor who, he's a Coors Light guy. Well, actually, I have 2 neighbors. Both Coors Light guys. Like, see them all the time, just chugging back Coors Light. And when we opened, they came and tried some. They're like, "Whoa, that's really good! Like, I can't afford to down them quite as much as I was downing the Coors Lights, but that's really, really good." So.
And in a similar way, a lot of the fellows who got to know us, and I suppose I say fellows because I'm thinking about a particular bunch of guys, but who are from the UK or from an older generation, who got to know us because of that ESB, which is very familiar to pub ale. It's got a good toothy nature to it. They're in here trying new things now. They're trying the Naked Kölsch. They're trying the Camp Norway Northeast IPA with its like tropical, boozy overtones, and they're liking it now. And I think just having that, not every day, but that, casual relationship with your local neighborhood brewer really puts you in a safe space to try new things. And we're really enjoying, being able to present different options to people that are coming back week after week or hearing about us because they've bought something in a dépanneur and they want to come over here and see us, and they get to try 5 new things they've never seen before. It's very enjoyable for us, and I hope for them too.
Do you find now that it's more or less summer, the flights are becoming more popular than people just coming in, grabbing a 4-pack, and then leaving?
Oh yeah.
Obviously, with being able to almost fully open, you're at what, 70%, 75% roughly?
50%.
Yeah, we do 50% inside and 50% outside, which is pretty appropriate for us right now. I think for us that's a comfortable way to be. We could have more people in here, and I think that we're ready for that when the rules do change. But what have we seen that's changed? Well, people were supporting us, and people were experiencing our beer, just like we were a dépanneur. We had a fridge full of beer. They would show up for 3 days a week. We'd open up the doors, and they'd come and buy all the beer in the fridge. And now that we're open, people are here enjoying the hospitality. So, although our canned beer sales to dépanneurs is definitely going up, our beer sales out of our fridge has gone down as people are now enjoying us in pint glasses and glasses and rattlers and shandies and everything else here in the tap room. And we did expect that, but I have to say the palettes dégustation, the flights are always popular. And what we often see is a couple will come in or a family will come in and they'll have a flight and they'll talk about it and they'll swap them around. They'll choose their favorite and then they'll come back for that glass. And we've got some really excellent restaurants here in Hudson, some really, really creative chefs and really skilled kitchens. And we get to see people before and after they go to these, they go to some of the best restaurants west of downtown Montreal. And they might come in for a palate before they go out to dinner, and then they'll come back here for one after, and it's really great to see that.
Are you guys finding a shift at all where like local old school pubs who are stuck with, those big Labatt or Mulster contracts are contacting guys about bringing in beer?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
The local pub, they had, the big beers on tap.
Yeah.
And they want us on tap as well. Some in Vaudreuil are on tap there. So yeah, because often they'll have 80% of their taps will be dedicated to the big boys, but they'll have one or two. And the locals will definitely want us to be representing, so they can say, here's our local beer, rather than here's just a good craft beer, but it's not really associated with this place. So
yeah, that's one thing I feel really needs to change in this city is not allowing the monopoly of BMC controlling the industry. I don't know if you guys have been here that long, but Irish Embassy downtown, they finally hollowed at the basement and they're like, it's craft beer only.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and then the building burnt down. So,
I didn't even hear that. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, no, it was a big, so nobody got killed, which is good. But the big kitchen fire and the building's no, even though it's 100 years old, it's done. Yeah. So it killed us on the inside as craft beer drinkers. Finally, a good craft beer place downtown. We love supporting Irish Embassy. Gone.
It's not necessarily the most sexy topic in the beer industry, but you talk about these contracts for draft, right? It really depends, and this is just based on the last year of talking to people about this, it really depends on where they are in their contract cycle. You get pubs that have made a point to say, we're only going to be craft beer, we're going to fund our own draft lines, we're going to fund our own draft cleaning, and we're going to do craft beer, and people are going to know us for it, and we're going to have rotating taps, and we're going to have favorites. And that's great. So that's, full love to them. But you've got lots of businesses that kind of rely on some of those relationships commercially. It's a big part of their way to manage their expenses is to have these contracts. But we're finding that they're able, and it could be like Diageo or Sleeman's. I'm not pulling out anybody particular. It's very universal. We're finding that there is the flexibility to have those contracts and to have those partnerships, which can be commercially important for those businesses, especially small businesses, but still also carve out 2 taps, 4 taps for locals. And those agreements are becoming more and more common. I was on the phone with a very popular, larger restaurant in our region, south of here by a bit. And they were really keen to have a couple of our beers on tap, and people had been asking them, and I'm phoning up and I'm pestering them, obviously. And they say, well, we are completely locked out with our contract, and we wish that we had realized that we could make these changes when we signed the last contract. And it's going to be a year. So put it in your calendar. I want you to call me in 10 months, and we'll get these taps set up. because a contract's a contract. They're locked up for now. I can respect that. The will is there for a lot of places, but a lot of hospitality places are just so used to it, they don't know how to have that conversation. So we really encourage anybody who's running draft lines in their restaurants or their pubs, to really look at getting that done. It's so good for your customers. It's good for craft beer in Quebec too.
I'm sure the large breweries, when they come in and they say, "Hey, we'll pay for all your draft lines," they're not saying, "By the way, you could push us a little and have some taps left over." So, yeah, it's something that I think they have to be conscious of. But
yeah, that's right.
Having put in the tap lines myself, I totally understand. Having someone come in and do it for you, that'd be great.
Exactly.
That's awesome. So speaking of kind of working with local businesses at the same time, you guys are very new. Have you collabed with a beer with anybody yet, or is there plans to collab with a couple of local guys and making any collab beers?
We're
is this a state secret? Is this? I mean, do we have to sign a non-disclosure agreement? We'll put this one behind the curtain. No, I'm kidding.
We've been talking to some local businesses. In fact, the farm that we give our grain to. They grow haskap berries, so like Japanese blueberries. And so I'm looking at maybe this winter, maybe in the spring, making probably a haskap wheat ale, something like that. There's a number of restaurants around that are interested in having us do something maybe that's specific to their restaurant to pair with the food that they serve. So we haven't actually made anything yet, but we've certainly talked a lot about it.
Any collabs with Quebec local craft breweries that I love going to these guys, let's work together, let's work on a beer?
We're really open to it. I think there'd be something for us, something great for us to participate in. We are still in the getting used to our brewing cycle, getting used to our demand cycle part of the project. We've been open here in the tap room just for our first month and a bit. There's some breweries around that we're, getting better and better friends with, and I think that that's naturally going to turn into those conversations. Sure, there's some dream breweries. Not all of them are very close by or easy to do a collab with, but I think that's something we can look forward to.
Oh, for sure. Any kind of dream collabs out there? If you could go to, like you said, Cologne or Hamburg and brew with one of your dream breweries, any guys I know you guys are still upstarts, but let's say you go out there and they're like, sure, yeah, no problem.
Yeah, I mean, sure, the ESB, this ESB is good. It would be if Bass wants to collaborate with me, sure, we'll do a collaboration. It'll be okay, sure.
I think for me, Urig in Dusseldorf and their alt beer is always been one of my favorites. We're talking globally. Out there in British Columbia, and I'm a British Columbian, so I've always loved Driftwood and Daggerad and Steel and Oak, are my buddies that I mentioned earlier. That's a dream. I mean, they're far enough away that would be logistically, you have to get on planes and move around. That's less likely to happen than something regional. I think more realistically, as Duncan was mentioning, getting a Vaudreuil Solange brewing council or some kind of a collaboration effort based on that, I think would be really great. We'd all learn a lot. We'd all be able to lean on each other for ideas and resources. I think that's a good thing for the future. So Vaudreuil Solange is our area just to the west outside of Montreal.
Let's try this last beer you guys brought.
The last one is the Camp Norway. So like I said, it's Quebec yeast, which it has lots of fruit flavors. There's no fruit in it because it's a New England IPA. Yeah. But it's not all, there's lots of, delicious hops from New Zealand and Australia in there. But also a lot of the flavor comes from the Quebec yeast itself.
The nose is fantastic.
Yeah.
Gentlemen, a toast.
Toast? See, that's why I'm dripping beer on your shoes, Duncan. Sorry about that.
Oh, I got flies now.
Wow, very smooth, crushable IPA.
Yeah.
Very tasty.
Last night there was a family here, and they had, each of them got a pallet. On all of their pallets, they had the Camp Norway IPA. And when they got to it, they started a guessing game amongst themselves, like, what is the fruit that's in this beer? And, apricots, peaches, pineapples, like they were going through a list. And they finally called me over and said, okay, we're having a big argument here. Help us decide it. What's the fruit in this beer? And so they would say, well, it's apricots. I said, no, it's not apricots. Oh, it's peaches. No, it's not peaches. Oh, okay. It's pineapples. No, it's not pineapples. And at the end, they were looking at me, well, what is it? There's no fruit in this beer. It's all coming from the Quebec yeast. It's all coming from the hop additions. It's part of the brewer's art to be able to bring these tastes out of brewing. And they were very shocked.
Yeah. It's wild, the flavors, like the citrusy flavors that can be produced from hops. And people are just like, oh, you've added all this fruit. And it's like, we've done nothing like that. So.
Now, when making the New England or Northeast IPAs, my goal is always to make it not taste like beer, to make it taste like juice. And that of Dream Collabs, there was, I don't know if the guy's still there. I visited like 3 or 4 years ago. But there's a brewery in just outside Belleville, Ontario, called Signal Brewing. It's in a gorgeous location on a river in an old distillery just north of Belleville. And they made this 100% Citra New England IPA. It was like orange juice. It was so nice. And it was like 8%. You couldn't tell.
Yeah, I love that. It's like, oh, double IPA. Woo, this is tasting like juice. Next double IPA, I'm like, I better slow down.
Yeah,
exactly. Hey, those sneak up on you quick, so you got to be careful.
Yeah, with the IPAs, the double IPAs, we like to say, you got to plan ahead. You have to plan ahead for that one.
Yeah, no, 100% for sure. You guys mentioned you started home brewing. What were those first couple of recipes that kind of made you say, this is where I'm going?
My first recipe was terrible. It was absolutely horrible. Undrinkable, gave you a crazy headache, just tasted like yeast. But persevered. The one that really got me really interested was there was I forget what it was called. It was like the Homemaker's Guide by Catherine Parr Trail. So Susanna Moody's sister, I think. Sister.
Yes, that's right. Sister.
Or something like that. And so it was kind of like recipes from the bush from colonial Canada in like 1860. And there were 3 recipes in the book. One making beer with maple syrup, one making beer with, I think, beets, but like sugar beets, and one making it with treacle. And so I made those. I'm like, that's pretty cool. Making something that, existed at one point and you just found the records of. And so after that, and the beers were getting more drinkable.
Yeah, awesome. That's great. So I have to add this caveat now. When it's safe to travel again, sit in a cylindrical tube without recycled air, without a mask on for, I personally have no problem wearing a mask, but without wearing a mask on a plane for 6 hours plus, that when things have settled down and you're actually able to take a vacation, a beercation you'd love to go on.
Well, I'll start. I guess there's, I'm pulled in many directions for this answer, to be quite honest. I would like to do a tour of the British brewing styles, but I think I would probably tie that into a true location trip. I would also head down to southern Germany and the Czech Republic. I would really, really like to sink my teeth into as many Fest beers and Marzens as possible, Dunkelweissens, and try the different kinds of peppery Pilsners that you get in the northern Czech Republic. Maybe visit Pilsen, see what that floor malting situation looks like. That's the kind of beer tour that keeps me awake at night, I think. And I would just, if I could, I would book that ticket right now.
Soon, hopefully.
Yeah.
Knock on wood and all the vaccines and stuff. So.
Oh, for sure.
Duncan, yourself?
Yeah, it's actually similar. Like I have this probably tendency towards the British beers, and I'd like to go, just see small English breweries, small Scottish breweries, have a real wee heavy up in some tiny little Scottish town. But have it tied to like a grand tour, and go around to Belgium and France and go to the real breweries where these styles are actually from. and taste like at the source, not the mass-produced version that you might be able to get here, but actually go to the brewery where they're doing the traditional way still in small quantities and just see how they're doing it and taste the real tastes.
Yeah, that's the ultimate one for me. I would do like a Scotch beer tour, so go
nice.
to the old place in Islay and stuff, and then just work my way over. So
There's the concept of a beer tour. You go to a town that might have 4 breweries and you check them all out. There's this didn't make my list, but I'd still like to do it, so I'm going to talk about it. There's this rail line in the Pacific Northwest called the Cascades. It's an Amtrak line. It goes from Vancouver to Seattle to Portland, and I think it goes down to Sacramento too. And I'd like to, other people are doing this too, it's not my idea, but I'd like to have the Cascades beer tour where you set up you do a vacation, you get a week, you get a couple of weeks, and you go from Vancouver to Seattle to Portland and maybe back, and a couple of nights in each town and see what they have to offer. That Pacific Northwest brewing culture is kind of its own thing, like it's a unique thing, and they've got some good styles. I'd like that.
I find we're very spoiled in North America, especially our
Sure.
region, like let's say Hamilton to the Maritimes, down through Maine, kind of New Hampshire, Vermont, New York. It's just so many good breweries, and like you say, that entire West Coast, you just work your way Vancouver down. And it's kind of almost, even start in Alberta, Vancouver, and work your way down, but there's almost nothing kind of in the middle that I've seen, except for Texas. Texas has
Ikeda Brewing in Elkhart, Indiana. Shout out to Elkhart, Indiana. Ikeda Brewing in Elkhart, Indiana makes some excellent beers and pizza, and is the place, maybe the only place, to drink good beer in Elkhart, Indiana.
If it's ever on the list, I'll definitely have to check it out.
Yeah, you have to be there on purpose.
Yeah.
You don't end up there by accident.
Indiana.
Yeah.
Maybe see like an NCAA Final Four game or something I could see, and that's about it. So.
Yeah, 90 minutes out of Chicago.
So,
yeah.
Awesome. So what's next for the Cardinal brand? What do you see if things reopen more? Obviously more seats, but
Yep.
For yourselves, what's next for Cardinal?
Start with the brewing stuff.
Yeah, we're making more beer. So we're launching the Golden Ale. We're launching the West Coast ISA, so India Session Ale. We're going to be coming out with a Hefeweizen. We're going to be coming out with I've been testing a G&T beer.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
The more you guys experiment, the more I'm personally willing to try. So.
yeah.
Awesome.
And then there'll be Christmas, so we're going to have some kind of a Christmas ale. I'm thinking something maybe with cranberries, chocolate,
I like the sound of that.
something like that. Maybe like a cranberry stout.
Yeah. As far as hospitality goes, we're really looking forward to maximizing, the space that we can do here in the tap room and have more programming, more music, more events. We are at 50% capacity now, which seems okay, but we can definitely do more. And I feel that now we've had several weeks of running the tap room. We're in a good space to expand on those capabilities. Looking forward to some festivals coming up as well, and collaborating with different festivals that are local here. The Hudson Music Festival is coming up, for example, and we're the beer sponsor for the Hudson Music Festival. There's the Le Point Moulin, south east of here, at the kind of easternmost tip, I guess, of Vaudreuil-Soulanges. They're doing Sunday festivals, and they picked up our beer to sell during those festivals, and then they have a beer festival coming up we're going to participate in. And we're organizing right now, so get over to our Facebook and Instagram and sign up so you get the announcement on Oktoberfest here in Hudson. It's not buses of people coming in from Kingston and Quebec City and filling the town with thousands of people. But it's going to be a fun local Oktoberfest event with German beer and German food and music and fun over a period of 2 days, and it's going to be great.
I will definitely probably be coming to that.
All right.
So, I'm a huge fan of the whole Oktoberfest concept. Like personally speaking, I was in Cleveland for an NFL game there, and it's like, because somebody's like, the German restaurants here, man, because it's like a German the Germans all located here in like
Yeah.
Pittsburgh, so it's like German restaurant.
Yeah.
Oh, this big one called Hofbrauhaus. I'd never been to one.
Yeah.
And it's just schnitzels like the size of my face, and I'm just so happy. So,
Note to self: create a media pass
Yeah.
for the Oktoberfest
no,
event.
we're good with that as a YouTube media personalities. So awesome. This has been a fantastic talk. I appreciate the beers. I really appreciate you guys having us and answering questions. Let everybody know where they can find you.
So thanks very much. We'd love it if you would find us right here in Hudson, Quebec, on 466 Main Road. Enjoy all of our beers on our terrace, in the tap room, and for takeaway from the fridge. You can also find us at a number of dépanneurs and specialty stores, epiceries, even charcuterie and sausage stores, as well as grocery outlets across Quebec, all the way from Quebec City right down to Saint-Zotique and everywhere in between, in increasingly higher quantities and locations. So thanks.
And we're also at our website's cardinalhudson.com. We're on Facebook, Twitter, we're on Untappd.
Yep.
We're on all the socials.
I think we're on TikTok.
Really?
Yes. I don't know who is dancing exactly, but there's somebody dancing for Cardinal on TikTok, I'm sure.
And for those who want to know, you guys are dog friendly as well, so that's very important.
Yeah, that's right. On our terrace, friendly dogs that are well behaved are always welcome, and we have a couple of bowls of water to put out for our furry visitors.
Awesome. So you heard it all here. As for us, if you enjoyed this episode, subscribe, hit the notification bell. As for us, it's allbeerinside.com is the website, at allbeerinside on all social media. And as I say at the end of all episodes, drink craft, not crap.